Art the Clown is back. Much bloodier, much more Christmassy, and much more terrifying. In this installment, we'll see how he survived, even though he was literally decapitated. A girl named Jules goes into her parents' room to tell them there's someone on the roof. The parents don't listen to her. Her mother just thinks it's a nightmare and reassures her by saying that Santa's elves are coming to check if everything is ready for Christmas. Jen, the mother, promises to leave cookies and milk for the elf if she goes to sleep.
Okay.
When she goes to put it out, she hears a noise on the roof and realizes the front door is open. Later, Jules hears footsteps in the living room. The innocent girl thinks it's Santa and, excited, runs to wake her brother Timmy, who doesn't pay much attention. She goes downstairs to see Santa. But wait a minute, Santa has an axe.
That's suspicious.
Santa heads towards Timmy's room, and Jules realizes maybe this isn't Santa. And well, it's not. It's Art the Clown, who brutally attacks Jules' father. The mother runs out and is horrified to see what Art did to her son. Art laughs and chases Jen until he catches her. After finishing his work, Art enjoys his Christmas cookies, and he washes the dishes. He may be a killer, but no one can say he isn't hygienic. He finds the girl hiding, and that's how the story begins. Welcome to Random Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap the movie. Remember how Sienna epically decapitated Art? Well, a police officer finds his body, and Art attacks him. The body puts the officer's head on while searching for his own. In case you don't remember, his head is in the asylum where Victoria, the survivor from the first movie, is. Victoria literally gave birth to Art's head. And here we see a possessed Victoria calling for help, with Art absorbing a nurse. Victoria attacks a guard with Art's body assisting, allowing him to retrieve his head. The two head to an abandoned house where Art joyfully retrieves all his weapons. Victoria goes into the bathroom, smashing her head against the mirror, using the broken glass to cut herself and enter a hibernation state. Meanwhile, Art sits in his attic rocking in a chair, laughing. 5 years later, on Christmas Eve, Sienna is released from a mental health center to stay with her Uncle Greg, his daughter Gabby, who idolizes Sienna, and her Aunt Jess. Meanwhile, some demolition workers enter the abandoned house. The workers split up, and one of them finds Art still seated, covered in dust and cobwebs, while another finds Victoria. Art and Victoria wake from their hibernation, attacking the workers. Watching what Art does to the man, Victoria gets turned on and, indulges herself with the glass.
You disgust me.
Gabby notices Sienna's scars, thinking they're cool since she doesn't know their origin or the trauma Sienna endured. Sienna suffers from survivor's guilt, which makes her have visions of her friend Brooke, feeling responsible for her death and her mother's. And you're probably wondering what happened to her brother? Well, Jonathan is now in college, trying to move forward with his life. He meets his roommate, Cole, and his girlfriend Mia, who is obsessed with Jonathan and his history with Art the Clown, seeing him as a legend for surviving him. She invites him to her true crime podcast to discuss his experience. At that moment, Jonathan gets a call from his sister, who says she misses him. She tells him everything is fine, but it's not. She's still on medication to calm her traumas. Meanwhile, Art creates an ice weapon for hunting, and Victoria works on a suit. Passing by a bar, Art gets excited to see a man dressed as Santa. Like a fan, he eagerly approaches him. The bartender asks what's in Art's bag, and he pulls out, obviously, his horn. What else did you think he'd pull out? Santa likes the clown, so he buys drinks for everyone. But Art spits it out, he doesn't like alcohol. Then Art urinates on Santa's leg,
What?
enraging him and prompting Santa and the bartender to try to kick Art out. But Art has had his fun, so he pulls out a gun from his bag, shooting both the bartender and a nearby customer. He points the gun at Santa, only to strip him of his clothes and wear them himself, tying Santa to a chair. Santa calls for help, but Art uses his new invention, liquid nitrogen, to freeze him and then smashes him with a hammer. Oh, and he also takes his beard. Sienna has a journal where she writes her thoughts about the clown, where she keeps a letter from her brother. The letter warns her they need to destroy the girl because she isn't human but a demon. According to him, demons can sometimes cross into our world, but not alone. They need a vessel, usually someone recently deceased, to use as a portal. But not just anyone. It has to be someone sinister, like a serial killer. If a demon enters this world, a counterpart must stop it before it becomes too powerful, and he believes Sienna is that counterpart. As long as Sienna is alive, the demon is vulnerable. The problem is, they know this. The next day, at a local mall, Sienna and Gabby are Christmas shopping for Jonathan. At that moment, Sienna starts hearing the song from her dream in the second movie and realizes Art is alive.
No, God!
She calls her brother to meet up with him. Cole and the fangirl also arrive, and she's thrilled to see Sienna. She asks how she's coping, which angers Sienna, who tells her about all the suffering and trauma she and her brother have endured. She tells Jonathan she saw the clown dressed as Santa. Jonathan doesn't believe her, and tells her that he saw how she cut off his head. Sienna tries to convince him it's not over. But Jonathan doesn't care about Art anymore and just wants to move on. She shows him the letters about demons he sent while in the asylum. Now that he's older, he doesn't believe any of it, but Sienna insists his theories were real. Sienna believes Victoria was used as a vessel to bring Art back to life. And yes, she literally gave birth to Art's head to resurrect him. Sienna tells her brother she wants to return to Terrifier to find the only weapon that can stop him: the sword. At the mall, Art replaces the Santa who was greeting children. He calls over a little girl and gives her a doll. The other kids notice and run to get their gifts. A worker realizes this isn't the original Santa, so he alerts security. The guard kicks him out, but Art laughs because the gifts he gave the children were explosives. After the conversation with his sister, Jonathan's anxiety and trauma resurface. Sienna returns to her aunt's house, where Gabby sees her hiding a gift and notices her dirty hands. Sienna doesn't tell her what it is, but we know. Art goes to the university dorm where Jonathan lives and crashes a fraternity party. Sienna realizes Gabby read her journal when Gabby mentions Sienna's dislike for cereal.
Please don't be mad at me.
Gabby asks if everything in the journal is true, but Sienna denies it, saying it's only what she believes due to her illness. Mia and Cole are about to be intimate when Art enters, though he doesn't watch. He may be a killer, but he's no pervert. On the news, Sienna hears about the mall incident, realizing what she saw was real. Traumatically, she tells her uncles she saw the clown, and they're not safe because he's coming. She screams for them to call Jonathan. Jonathan answers, and Sienna warns him he's not safe. Jess and Greg think it was a mistake bringing Sienna, believing her words are part of her mental issues. While Mia and Cole are in the shower, Art urinates before getting to work, and remember, wash your hands. He pulls a chainsaw from his bag and attacks the couple. Well, at least Mia got to meet the clown. As for Cole, Art grabs him and thrusts the chainsaw through him, and joyfully makes a blood angel. Greg searches for Jonathan, but when he speaks with him, it's not really him.
I'll be right there.
Sienna recalls her father drawing her dressed as an angel. He tells her the drawing is of a warrior angel with a magical sword that can defeat any evil. As she touches the drawing, her father has visions of her battle with Art and, frightened, reminds her he's always with her. Suddenly, Sienna finds herself in a place where an angel commands a demon to forge the warrior armor her father drew for her. Upon waking, Sienna hears her uncles talking about her in the living room. She goes down only to see it's not her uncles, but Victoria, now in costume, and Art mocking her. Greg's body is nailed to the wall. Sienna quickly tries to find Gabby, but Art grabs her, throws her, then knocks her out with a mallet. When she wakes, Sienna is tied to a chair, and so is her aunt. Art decorates the tree with Greg's entrails. Jess asks about Gabby, and Art reveals her head on the table, being eaten by rats. Sienna writhes in fury, and Art tells her to calm down. Before dying, Jess tells Sienna to destroy them both and make them suffer. Helpless, Sienna watches what they do to her aunt. Victoria taunts her, saying she's no savior, and places a crown of thorns on her head. The demon tells her that he intends to possess her and destroy her from within, just like he did with Victoria. But before that, he reveals to her that the head isn't Gabby's. Art shows Gabby what he did and then reveals that the head is actually her brother's, though he might be lying, as we never saw him die. The demon blames her for everything while Art laughs hysterically. He tries to possess her by feeding on Sienna's fury and hatred, but she resists. When he realizes that Gabby is giving Sienna strength, Art tries to kill her. But before he can, Gabby, cleverly knowing the sword is in the gift because she opened it without Sienna noticing, manages to make the demon force Sienna to open it. However, Art strikes her hands. As best as she can, Sienna opens the gift, takes out the sword, and attacks Art and Victoria, regaining her strength to finish off the demon. But Art is still alive and attacks her with a chainsaw. But don't worry, folks. Sienna has the sword, and no one can beat the sword. Art and Sienna have an epic sword versus chainsaw battle, where it seems Art is about to win. But Sienna grabs him by his vulnerable spots. She tries to retrieve her sword, but Art presses her face against Greg's body and starts to strangle her with Greg's entrails. Sienna bites them to break free, grabs her sword, and stabs Art with it. Meanwhile, the demon disintegrates, creating a portal to hell from his blood. Gabby falls toward the portal, grabbing onto the edge. Sienna decides to leave Art alive to try to save her. She attempts to get Gabby to grab onto the sword, but it doesn't work. Gabby ultimately falls into hell along with the sword. Art, seizing his opportunity, escapes through the window. Sienna removes the crown and watches as her cut hands begin to heal on their own. Furious, she vows revenge. Meanwhile, Art is left alone at a bus stop. On the bus, a girl is reading The Ninth Circle, a reference to the first short film where Art appears. Art boards the bus, heading to an unknown destination. And that's how the movie ends.